Let's kick some things off in the Meadowlands, where the Giants opened up their mandatory minicamp today. No doubt make or break for the Giants this season. Russell Wilson's there now. Now, they drafted Jackson Dart, of course, but feels like there's going to be some fascinating fodder out of New York. And it's only just beginning. Here's Russell Wilson on that NY offense earlier today.
I think our identity wants to be tough-nosed football team, a team that is explosive, obviously, in the passing game and the running game. The ability to diversify the football, the ability to score a lot of points, obviously, but also know how to win the game when it's clutch time. And so all those things are necessary. But we've had a great OTA so far, and obviously got one more day tomorrow, whatever it is. But I think the important part is making sure that when we come back for training camp, that we have the best training camp that we can possibly have day in and day out.
Sounds good, Russ. For more on the Giants mini camp, we bring in our Giants reporter, Jordan Renan. Jordan, what did you see from the Giants QBs today?
Thanks, Laura. The Giants have a new-look QB room this season. Russell Wilson was signed to be the starter. He took exclusively first-team reps this spring and impressed, not only off the field with his leadership, but with the way he threw the football. Veteran wide receiver Darius Slayton said he threw it even better than expected. And then there's rookie quarterback Jackson Dart, the first-round pick out of Ole Miss. Head coach Brian Daboll said he was excellent this spring with the way he retained information. Dart began the spring working with the third-team offense and quickly worked his way into the second team. That's expected to continue this summer. And how about this? Dart ended minicamp practice on Tuesday with a strike down the right sideline for a touchdown. Giants, they end minicamp on Wednesday with a light practice. Back to you, Laura.
All right, Jordan's already getting Giants fans excited about Jackson Dart, if they weren't already. Tim, what makes the most sense, though, for the Giants as a franchise at quarterback this year? Because it's more complicated than just letting those guys play, right?
It is more complicated. Let me first just say Russell Wilson's wearing eye black for OTAs.
Like
RC, I don't know that I've ever seen that ever in my entire life. I think that, here's what I think is going to happen. Russell Wilson is coming in with experience, I think, in terms of, just having an initial grasp, showing the leadership and taking control. I think that will happen. Now, there's been a track record. You just look at what happened when Eli Manning was the quarterback for the Giants. Kurt Warner was the starter. Got about halfway through the season, and Eli Manning took over. I think, when an organization has had past success with something, I think there's pressure to have, to try to repeat it. And so I would expect that Russell Wilson, who was signed to be the starter, is the starter, to start the season. If he's playing great and they're competing in what is a really tough division, then maybe he keeps the job. But ultimately, they're probably the fourth most talented team in that division. And if their record is indicating that they're not going to be a real contender, then I think around that halfway point, we'll see Dart as the starting quarterback.
Yeah, you imagine some clamoring could potentially happen from the fans. You also saw Jameis Winston in some of that camp footage. RC, with quarterback being such a question mark for the Giants, can the defense do enough to keep him afloat?
They sure can up front. Abdul Carter, I don't even know if you're supposed to do this. He put on his story on Instagram the other day a meeting at the quarterback with Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and himself. And you add Dexter Lawrence to that, who's one of the best interior defensive linemen in all of the NFL. And this front should be ferocious. And so I think that's what they're going to lean on when you start talking about this defense, the ability to get after the quarterback on third down and sub packages, but also the ability to play the run with physicality and setting a tone at the line of scrimmage. I don't necessarily think that this makes the Giants a contender, but who is going to want to block this front when you're facing them week after week? That's where it starts for this team. And if you can build some things around it defensively, I think they could be very difficult to move the football on.
I love it out of Abdul Carter. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put this on my Instagram. Why not?
But the thing is this, though, Laura. But when you post it, what about the offensive lineman who ain't blocked nobody? If I'm a defensive player in the NFC East, I'm like, well, at least we know that their offensive line is buns.
Maybe the O-line doesn't follow him, but you're right about the other teams. I was just thinking within the Giants' own organization, where the Chiefs are starting mandatory minicamp. Mahomes and company, you see Mahomes out there looking to make it to the Super Bowl for the fourth straight year. And, of course, after falling short to the Eagles last year, a little revenge factor at play here. That could be scary. Good signs for the Chiefs fans. Trey Smith reported to camp. Chris Jones was happy to see him.
Well, it's good Trey didn't take my approach. Trey doing the right thing, man. No, don't take no advice from me. Like, I did things a little different. Don't take no advice from me. Trey, you in a good place. Franchise tag is like $25 million, right? That's the big bucks. Yeah, he's in a good place. Stay healthy. Be ready to compete in training camp, which I know Trey will be, and we're excited to have him around.
Not the big bucks. Jeff Darlington joining us now. Trey Smith was franchise tagged this offseason, of course. What's the latest you're hearing about a potential long-term deal in KC, Jeff?
Well, as you said, nothing just yet. And I think Chris Jones kind of speaks. They're talking in the locker room. They know exactly how one another feels, and there is optimism, of course. Brett Veach has done a really good job of making sure that he does retain talent, and he does it in a way where it should usually get done before it becomes tenuous. Now, Chris Jones obviously made a point that he was very different. In this circumstance, it does not feel like it'll be that way.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the way that they're talking about it. Now, RC, I realize it's, June 17th, but why not go a little big picture here and get people talking? Are the Chiefs still the team to beat in the AFC going into the season?
Let me tell you why you're the best host on any football show, right? Because normally you just ask that question, but you even were like, all right, RC, I know you don't really know this answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And that is why I love you. You're the best in the business, Cap. But I do think when you think about the Kansas City Chiefs, like, they are the dudes until you beat the dudes. And with the way that they've played year in and year out, showing up in the biggest moments, I do believe that they're the front runners. But we saw in that Super Bowl that if you don't protect Patrick Mahomes, it's extremely difficult for even the best in the business to operate. And I don't feel like they did enough in this offseason. So it will be interesting to see how this offensive line gels, progress, and what sort of chemistry they have as the season gets long, because we know the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, and some of those other teams at the top of the AFC will be chomping at the bit to repeat what they saw the Eagles front do in the Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, it's a great point by RC, because I think it's, you can always look at these teams in Kansas City and say, hey, the receivers haven't played well. The offensive line is not perfect. It's been easy to find, segments of the roster that you look at and you say, look, there are other teams that can take advantage of that or are better than that throughout the National Football League. But what Kansas City does have is the power triangle of probably the best head coach in football, arguably the best quarterback in football, and probably the best defensive coordinator in football. And so when you have that, even when you have some areas of your football team that need a little work, or maybe you didn't address the way you wanted to in the offseason, you're going to have a chance. It's a little bit, I think, the way people felt, at times in New England when it was Belichick and Brady, and they were, sitting there with, somebody like Josh McDaniels, or further back Charlie Weiss. So just, you felt good about the power structure, of the organization at the most critical points, and Kansas City still has that.
They do, and I think, though, to that point, they'll also have Rashee Rice back, who missed all but the first 4 weeks of the season. And one of the narratives that has existed throughout this offseason is, how do they get more explosive? They were 16th in yards per game, which is quite honestly subpar, and the first time in Patrick Mahomes' era that he hasn't been in top 10 in that statistic. They want to be more explosive. But to some of the questions that RC raised about the left side of that offensive line, can they do that if they don't have the proper protection? That is absolutely the focus going into training camp. Can they solidify the left side of the line to become more explosive and do things to teams, put them on their heels in ways that they didn't necessarily do quite as often in 2024?
Yeah, and as you guys know, the Chiefs have had a target on their back for years now, but the schedule does look really difficult for next season. This is analytically based on last season's records for teams, but according to that, the Chiefs have the 6th hardest schedule in the NFL, according to ESPN Analytics, so something to keep an eye on. All right, in case you missed it, this is fun. Ted Lasso received some advice on coaching attire from Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh.
This is September 4th, 2019. As we're in the middle of filming episode 2 of that Ted Lasso show I'm doing for Apple. So far, so good, I think. This emoji. I had a small, silly question for you. On game days, what do you actually wear to and from the stadium? I wear the same clothes every day, khakis and a blue sweatshirt. Same to the game that I coach in, and will wear the same thing to post-interview and then home as well. No shower unless it's really hot or really cold outside or raining. In that case, our equipment manager has a duplicate pair of everything I wear in my locker, so I put that on to wear back on the plane or home, and always a new pair of socks and a different underwear. There is always a locker with extra layers for cold games plus long johns. That's the routine for road games and home games. I pack a playbook, call sheet, and a toothbrush and wear the rest of what I need. As I like to say, I pack a toothbrush and a great attitude.
Oh, wait. So here's us in Harbaugh attire. Guys, you made me look like I'm going to some business meeting. But RC, you got the gloves going. You look like a real coach.
Hey, that's because if I would be out there, I would be doing athletic things. I would be catching the ball like Coach Harbaugh. I would be throwing the ball. I would be hitting the dummies, right, and playing at practice like I'm getting ready for the game because I'm one with the team, Laura.
You are.
You just look like you're going to broker some power deal.
I was gonna say I'm like a real estate agent. Tim, are you a Harbaugh brother and we didn't know? Like, what's going on? You look a little bit too much like him.
I mean, that's fair. I do coach high school football, and the only thing that was really that different was the logo. I got to be honest. Still, although the neck angle, but that Jeff and I got, the neck angle Jeff and I got.
Yeah. You did a little dirty there.
What you guys did to me
I'm
there.
pushing like 220 there. That is about 30 pounds more than I actually weigh.
Jeff put on some LBs. Jeff is packing a toothbrush and a good attitude, though, for sure.